So what is it? We had a problem up here last time, right? Couldn't hear for some remote. Okay, so welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting. This is 1 p.m. Monday, August 25th, 2025. Next item is citizen input. Does anybody have any input for items not on the agenda? And I don't see anybody remotely. Our next item is a new item called Commissioner Announcements. Commissioner Dare.
Thank you so very much, Commissioner Devon, for putting that on our agenda.
Well, it's just taking a moment to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Considering my weekend, I really probably have no comments to make. I did appreciate immensely. Zach from our road department was out in front of my house working really hard. Great guy, thank you for being there. And Ryan from the sheriff's office was out there working too. So no, people were working incredible hours for the flat fire. So thank you all.
Well,
And we do have more juniper trees that need to be cleaned up. So yeah, I saw a whole bunch of them.
in the cooperator meeting this morning, you mentioned that the opportunity or the action for a fire team is to limb them up and disconnect the ground fire from the trees. So that is what they were doing with junipers across the landscape. We're appropriate aware about that in the meeting this morning. With that, I will acknowledge the delegation of authority document.
Well, I mean, if we're doing commissioner announcements, I mean, I would also just like to say a tremendous thank you to the 5,000 firefighters who have responded to the flat fire. They have been doing heroic work in really, really challenging conditions. The temperatures, the winds, the humidity, all contributed to just an incredibly fast-moving fire out there in the juniper and grasses and shrubs. And they were able to, they couldn't protect every single house, but they were able to get some lines around a very, very dynamic fire. And I'm sure that the losses would have been much, much greater, but for the response to date and now overnight, a little bit of luck with the weather changing. So just a tremendous thanks to all of those folks.
So as I say, along those lines, I was able to attend the cooperators for the coordination meeting to start the incident command, joint command, Friday afternoon. Commissioner Dare, I know you were there also. I ended up signing the document for Deschutes County, and then today was provided a document number 886 for the delegation of authority. And that's structural protection, Oregon State Fire Marshal stepping in, the red team they call it. So that's the group that's in there. And this is a complex incident. It used to be kind of a level 3, 2, or a 1 incident, but it's complex. There was a Central Oregon Type 3 team in there that had really brought this incident together, got resources flowing. So that all started Friday. So just like Commissioner Chang, thank you very much for the professionalism and the response to this fire. And Commissioner Dare, I will acknowledge you've been to this now in California and in Oregon. It's right out your back door. So
No, but see, the fire started at 4:29 on Thursday afternoon. And I actually had the unfortunate circumstance to drive by 8 rigs right by my house that were sitting there all talking at 7:17 Thursday night. And it was at that point in time, the only fire listed on watch duty for the entire state of Oregon. And I honestly would have hoped that we would have smothered the fire. It was 6 miles in Jefferson County, and the fire wasn't smothered, and it just got really big, really fast. And and now, what is it, 10,000 people are away from their homes. It's for 3,900 structures were evacuated. It started at 4:29 on Wildcat on that app. So, and when you look it up, it's we got to hit it really big when it happens.
to a community meeting 6 o'clock tonight at the Sisters High School auditorium, as I understand. think I'm gonna dial into that, so I just may be remote, I don't know that I'll just be monitoring, I won't be able to participate, but I'll watch and I think you were thinking of going,
I'm likely gonna go.
yeah, Commissioner Dare will be there.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, okay, so as I say, we'll have some good presence there. Sheriff was at the cooperator meeting this morning with Nick Kirby and the team, so a lot of good presence from Deschutes County.
Yeah, I want to thank Ty for Sheriff Rupert for all the work he did. They were definitely incredibly busy. And of course, we did have some looky-loos in my neighborhood that it was unfortunate.
Yeah, people wanted to kind of see it. Okay, any other announcements? As I say, we'll have other items at the end also.
While we're talking about the fire, this could just as easily be in other items, but I received a phone call from Deb Kraus, who works with animal evacuation. She was inquiring about space at the fairgrounds. You know, historically, the fairgrounds has made space available for people who are evacuated to bring their animals. The message she left me as of 10:30 this morning, there was, still no space at the fairgrounds for people. Those thousands of people who all had to evacuate, and are trying to find places for their horses, their pets, other livestock.
Yes, we do have 400 horse stalls at our fairgrounds, and we always say we are the evacuation spot, and especially for our county. So, yeah, I found it really incredulous that, as I mentioned to Nick this morning, people had to drive out to Palview, take a left, go down the road about 9 miles to Kearney Horse Center. I mean, it's a nice place and everything, but when you are evacuating and you are under all that pressure, that really seemed incredibly inappropriate.
If we can check with the Fair and Expo team, whether they're going to make spaces available, is there a conflicting event that, is just has all the space full, or what the situation is.
And I did just forward to Jeff Hines, our Fair and Expo Director's response about 15 minutes ago to the board, so.
Sorry, I haven't had a chance to read it.
No, I'm sure not, you've all been very, very busy, so we can follow up with this on Wednesday if you wish.
Anything else? Seeing none, item number 1, courthouse expansion update. Thank you for joining us today. CP here.
Afternoon, Lee Randall, Facilities Director.
Eric Nielsen, Capital Improvement Manager.
Kurt Schwaber, Superintendent for Fence.
Wayne Powderly, Coming Group, Owner's Rep. We have our monthly update ready for you, and it will follow kind of the same lines that we have been. We'll start with work that's currently been completed since our last update, talk about what's coming up, and then we'll review current budget summary. So I will turn it over to Eric to start.
Okay. All right, so jumping in, kind of similar format for the update, talk about completed work, ongoing work, the construction schedule, and then finally the project budget. So this image here, I've updated every month. You can see the building's gotten a little bit taller, so topped out with the major structural component with the completing the roof deck. There you can see roof deck and then the concrete pumper that's pumping in some 4-back strips and I think the mechanical curb on the roof. So like I said, here's some photos of the completed roof deck. There's a view from Harriman Street and another from Bond Street. The photo on the right is shows it against the existing 1977 building, and then the photo on the right shows 3 stories plus the roof, and then the elevator core that'll be in the new single-story lobby. Here's a view from the roof deck shortly after it was poured. Not a lot to look at other than some rebar for mechanical curbs and then safety fencing around there before they get the parapet installed. So what they're moving into now is, the photo on the left shows blockouts for housekeeping pads for equipment that'll be located in the mechanical penthouse. And then the photo on the right is rebar for the concrete curb that the main air handler will sit on. And also parapet framing. So these, when they poured the deck, there was some steel embed plates located in the slab, which then allows them to come around and weld these tube steel posts up that'll form the structure of the parapet. These posts are needed because the parapet on this building is about 3.5 feet tall. The reason being that when people are up there doing maintenance, they don't have to tie off, or any other person accessing the roof. We're providing a kind of a built-in safety guardrail around the roof. They've also moved into exterior framing. So here you can see the metal stud framing on level 1, southeast corner on Harriman and Greenwood. So the metal stud framing's up with some openings for windows, and then the green board is the exterior sheathing over the top.
When we did the site tour, we saw the kind of just prepping for that smooth surface so the lift can go back and forth. Remember they were pulling out boulders and
Yeah.
rocks from that area.
Yeah, so they're continuing to work on that surface. Once they're done on that elevation down the road, that's where the concrete planters will be along the building. As the shoring's been removed from inside the building, they've been able to work on masonry inside. So on the right, there's some kind of storage rooms in the basement. And then on the left is the exterior wall of the parking garage with a block out for the main exhaust out of the garage. Also moved into plumbing rough-in. So again, working their way up the building. There's first on the left is some drain pipes in the basement level. And then on the right is level 1 with fire sprinkler piping installed. Continuing with the existing roof replacement, they've been working on it for a little while. They're now to the point where they've got the main field of the roof replaced, and then they're getting down to the detailed areas of where it connects to the existing building or the expansion. So the photo on the right shows the top of the circular stair structure, and there's an expansion joint between. Essentially, it's where the 3 buildings now will come together around this curved stair element. So they're doing some intricate work there to get that all sorted out. Also working on the connections. So on level 1 on the left there, they're working on prepping the base for the slab that will tie into the lobby, and then keep going past that circular stair structure that will connect into the lobby area outside courtroom G. And level 2 is on the right, similar connection. You can see there the red steel beam that goes across on actually both floors. They've installed that to support the floor and roof structures at the connection.
There'll be a bunch of concrete pours, like smaller pours, I don't know, big or small, but a bunch more events of pouring concrete now.
Yeah, so I can let Kurt talk to it, but inside the expansion, there's a slab, which will be in the main lobby here, and then they've moved on to the main lobby excavation for that slab and foundation. I think you've got most of the pour-back strips done inside.
Pour-back strips are done in the expansion side. What you're seeing here is where we're tie back slab on grade at that main level, entry level. It'll tie right into the existing concrete of your existing lobby. And there's seismic joints, not at the first level, but or not at the slab on grade level, but the levels above. Of course, there's a little section where we don't make connection. We can cover it with nice expansion joint cover, so you won't really know unless you know.
Unless you have.
And finally, this is a connection up at the roof, so you can see the expansion coming up 1 floor higher than the existing roof on the 1977 building. And then an important connection for us was that the photo in the right shows the mechanical penthouse that's existing, the door onto the roof, and we've also provided access into the expansion up to the new penthouse through a door behind where the photo was taken. There's temporary stairs there just for construction, but there will be an interior access. And here's the lobby construction. Like I said, they started excavation. They're kind of digging for foundations and then prepping the area for the slab. So the view on the left is looking from Bond, where the single-story lobby will be constructed, and then on the right is looking from the expansion out into the future lobby. Upcoming work.
Pretty much nailed it, I'd like to. Yeah, the big things coming up are on top of those concrete curbs that he was talking about. We'll actually set the units on top of those in the next couple of months. The main roof, finishing the parapet is a big deal for us in the penthouse framing, because then we can dry in our roofing system, and that's huge. That helps us with all our finishes on the inside. The exterior wall construction is well underway, and that will continue to go. And now that the shoring from all that concrete work is being removed, that opens up the rest of the exterior that hasn't been being worked on can now go. So that's gonna see some big improvement there over the next few weeks. And then of course, now with that shoring out from inside the building, all the MEP guys are taking over, and they're on right now on lower level, first level and second level. So they're all making great progress. Framing is going on in those same areas. And then you saw the excavation for the main lobby, and those foundations are getting surveyed today and tomorrow. So we'll be able to start working on that concrete. And then a new milestone for us coming up is right after Labor Day, when we worked with Eric and the courthouse team to be able to move into some of the renovation work a little early. So we're anticipating starting that, but we are going to start that on the 2nd, and that will be that north office space, if you're familiar with the floor plan, kind of across from the Sally Port, the current Sally Port. So it's a good way for us to take advantage of the courthouse staff accommodating us. So we're thankful for that.
Tower crane is coming down on the 12th.
The weekend of the 12th. The team did a really nice job of working with the city of Bend to get some lane closures, which, as you all know, it can be challenging to work through that. We got that worked out, so we got a 4-day period of Bond Street closure to pull the tower crane down. It's quite a feat to do that. You'll have a very large crane come in to take down the large crane. There's a smaller crane that comes to set up the larger crane to take down the larger crane. And it's just quite the process to get done and keep everybody safe.
You were able to put the tower crane up when the parking lot was there. Now we've infilled the parking lot. So
Yeah.
we're having to lift over the expansion.
There's no wires in the way or courthouses or anything to worry about, so it'll be all right.
Did I hear correctly though? It's not a lane closure, it's a road closure. Is that next week?
Yeah.
Correct.
We also worked really closely with court staff, and so the 2 days, a Friday and a Monday, are days that they don't have arraignments, they don't have other things scheduled, and so their workload is light. The city of Bend they were open to that closure, and having both lanes closed will really enable the team to be more efficient in taking the tower crane down. There will be signage several blocks south on Bond Street that will direct people. Essentially, once you get to Greenwood, you can make a left and then go north on Wall Street. So it's really just they'll also be talking to First Interstate Bank, is really in the law office, are the only two that also have access on that portion of Bond. So we'll be coordinating with them for those 2 business days, and then also with the weekend.
So did you actually say the dates this is gonna happen?
Yes, 12th through the 15th, Friday through Monday.
Great, when I'll be at the Pendleton Round.
All right.
You guys just go ahead and fix that, and that's a perfect time, because usually I park in front of the courthouse on the weekend. That is my secret parking, and it's always fabulous. But I won't be here.
I'm glad we got that coordinated.
I'm so glad you asked me first. That was very kind of you.
You're very welcome.
Yes, let her back. I'll be around it.
Yeah, I guess. Again, a high level look at the overall schedule. You can see where we are with the current progress right at the end of the structure part and into the, another exciting element with the exterior and interior going full steam ahead. And then that'll lead us into the public improvements. What you'll see is because of the height of the building, we can't really do the site improvements, the public improvements around us until we get done with all that elevation work. Then we can get the equipment out of the way and come in and do that part of it. And then we'll wrap up next summer with finishing the renovations.
Any questions before we talk about the budget?
All right, well, I'm happy to say I have another boring report for you.
No news is good news.
No news is good news. Things are still looking good and still on track. To date, as of the end of last week, for my readers, 23,170,476 spent to date, leaving a balance of 25,101,949. So it's about 48% complete through the end of last week. Contingency buckets are still looking good, both on the contractor's contingency and on the owner's contingency. Probably the only new item to note is there was another transfer of funds from OJD to the county for additional FF&E, and they're also, we're gonna do some extra scope of work on their audio video in the 7 existing courtrooms. So they transferred funds over to cover all of that. So you'll notice at the bottom of the report, there's an additional 800,000 there that's been transferred over to the county to handle that under our project. But yeah, other than that, things are still looking great, on track.
So any questions on the current budget update or other items that you're interested in reviewing?
Yeah, I saw that additional 800,000 and I was going, okay, I know that was the number because I've been telling people it's 47 million, but now we're up to $48,272,000, so yeah. Including furniture, fixtures and equipment. But we're getting 1.3 million from OJD, anything else? That's it, right?
And that,
But then they already gave us 1.5 million,
correct.
so that's 1.5 plus the 1.3, so they've given us 2.8.
Right, and then in addition, the larger sum of 15 million.
Yes.
So another way to review that is 15 million plus 1.5 million for renovations, for construction work, and then the 1.3 for audiovisual and FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So administrative offices, jury deliberation rooms, judges, areas where as they expand, additional furniture was needed. Great. Any other questions? And then I'll kind of wrap up with a few comments. So I'll just mention that tomorrow we do have the Facility Project Review Committee meeting. And so we'll be sharing the same information with that group tomorrow, as well as a tour immediately after the meeting. And then as we go forward, whenever there's an opportunity where any of the commissioners would like a tour, just let me know. We're happy to arrange an additional tour as the project proceeds. And then just highlighting some upcoming things over the next 2 or 3 months. We want to talk about some areas of risk as the team looks forward. It's a weekly process for them to look at what's coming down the pipe, where areas that we need to pay attention to. So a couple of those are, one, we mentioned the site improvements coming up. There was a revised site plan that went into the city. We are very aware of the majority of that, but the city hasn't issued those revised approved plans. And so once we receive those, the team will finish pricing out any costs of any changes. So that's one upcoming additional cost that we'll be seeing that we'll be able to meet through the contingency. All indications are that the contingency is very healthy and that we'll be able to absorb any of those additional costs without any challenges. And then with remodel work, anytime we start remodeling an existing building, there's some unforeseen things potentially that we also carry a contingency for. And so as the team gets into that remodel work, there's always the possibility of some changes that come up of things that were unforeseen or unknown until we start really tearing into ceilings and walls and looking at items. One item that has come up is relocating some of the heating and cooling piping. And so there's an area in the existing building where the existing hydronic pipes are piped through the electrical room. Under current code, that's something we need to relocate. So the team has put together a plan. We have that approved on how to move those pipes around the electrical room, but that is a cost that the contingency will be able to cover. So those are some things coming up that we'll have more information on in the next few months, and we'll share as that comes together.
So my one thought was, when will we have conditioned space? You know, so like when is it gonna be enclosed for a controlled environment or something? Is that for the winter or is it gonna be?
We'll have temporary
Temporary
things in
heaters?
place for the construction through the winter. We have to control our climate somewhat. But final HVAC and total control is right towards the end of February.
Yeah, so most of the winter it'll just be temporary heat to
Right.
keep it controlled.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Very good, thank you very much.
We're having fun.
Get the project done out there, yes. Item number 2, work session for dark skies text amendments. Text amendments.
Sorry, I was thinking about tower cranes.
Yeah.
I love them. I don't know why, but that's the New Yorker in me. Seems to see that I'm kind of a nerd about those things. Unrelated, for the record, Tanya Saltzman, Senior Planner, CDD. I'm here for a work session about the upcoming public hearing on the dark skies text amendments. So that public hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, the day after tomorrow. I'm gonna just do a quick overview. Obviously, at the hearing, I will do an extensive slideshow. I think we've discussed this topic a decent amount for in front of the board, so I'm not going to go into excruciating detail. I know everyone's got a lot on their plates right now. So the memo summarizes the process thus far, the suggested amendments, the planning commission recommendations, and the testimony received during that process, and then the next steps. As the board knows, in the past, this has been an ongoing topic for quite some time now. There's been a series, a couple of panel discussions in 2022 and 2023. And those have been, the recommendations from those have been taken into account when we were developing these proposed amendments. Some of those things, basically, in a nutshell, the amendments that were written originally in 1994 are a little bit out of date, which makes sense. Those regulations require all private and commercial outdoor lighting fixtures in unincorporated areas, basically to be shielded in certain ways depending on the types of the bulb and the brightness. The goal with these amendments is to simplify and streamline those amendments to get rid of references that are kind of outdated to certain types of lighting. There's a whole series of tables and charts in the zoning code right now from 1994 that don't necessarily apply. And add some more appropriate exemptions and exceptions and prohibitions that more adhere to certain dark skies principles based on the International Dark Sky Association, as well as just those that make a little more sense to both the residents of the county as well as code enforcement. One of the issues that we have come across is implementation and enforcement. These are the biggies, big topics here. We've heard in the panels in the past from our code enforcement staff and our building staff that a simpler code is easier to enforce. That makes sense. It's easier for you as a homeowner to say, you know what, I know this bulb is legitimate. It's easier for code enforcement to be able to enforce. So that is the goal, the overall goal of creating these kind of simplified, easy to understand amendments. And as we've noted prior to this, this project is kind of twofold. So this is one component, which is the legislative chunk where we're gonna look at the code, and then we're gonna also proceed with a public education component, public outreach, awareness. We're gonna work to coordinate with other organizations within the city and the county to kind of get the word out, what's supposed to be allowed and what's not, and what are best practices to do. So that's gonna be following the regulatory portion of the process. I'll give a brief summary of what's contained in these amendments. You do have those in your packet. There's a lot of red lines in there because we did reorganize stuff, so it does look like a lot. We reorganized the definitions. Previously, each one had a separate section of code for some reason, so we consolidated those, deleted superfluous or outdated definitions, like I mentioned, certain types of light fixtures that are no longer utilized. We also provided new definitions for certain terms, specifically downcast, light trespass, and string lights. Those were kind of some hot topics that came up throughout our panel discussions, our outreach, and subsequent testimony that we've received.
So you mean you can't put Christmas lights up?
No, that's not.
I'm like, string.
Christmas is prohibited, no.
I was
Just snuck that one in.
Sorry.
No,
I know.
actually, string lights before were not acknowledged at all in the code, and we did feel it was appropriate to acknowledge them and define them and do provide some guardrails on those, because those have been acknowledged by a lot of people who testified as issues. But string lights is different from holiday lights. Holiday lights,
You don't mention them in here, or you do?
the original code did not mention string lights. It did
Okay.
mention holiday lights. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm conflating the two because they sometimes overlap.
Okay, just wanna make sure. I
The lighting
remember
world
Christmas
is
lights up.
complicated, but the holidays are still allowed. I
Thank you very
promise
much.
for now.
Do you have dates when they're allowed?
Yes, actually, yeah,
December 1st, January 15th.
exactly. So that's what we proposed, based on some recommendations from Dark Sky. So fixed dates as well as a little bit of leeway for other holidays, because we know that sometimes people do want to light their, I don't know, maybe there's a special graduation or you celebrate a certain thing, but it's a fixed amount of days in a calendar year. So you can't just always have your holiday lights on for, you know.
Some people do, you know.
Well, that's what we're trying to get to. I think we were joking with Stephanie, you know, oh, it's my Tuesday lights. I love Tuesdays, so I do a light. So we are trying to get our arms around that and recognize, you know, what people actually want to do and recognizing how people live, but also recognizing the importance of dark skies. And therein lies the tension with, you know, this whole project. It is, you know, people want to do what they want to do on their property, but there also are some benefits to the dark skies, to wildlife and community and seeing the stars and everything. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. To that end, we also include a purpose statement and guiding principles in this code. We revised the purpose statement a little bit to, and this was with help from a dark sky representative, to recognize the night sky as an economic and community natural resource. It is a resource that people value. People say they move here for the dark skies often. Guiding principles. We don't usually do this in our zoning code, having just principles that aren't necessarily regulatory, but recognizing the inherent limitations of being able to regulate dark skies, we did include guiding principles from dark sky in the code itself to say kind of these are the best practices, these are the goals that we're shooting for. And you know, it's a slightly different stylistic zoning technique for those who like to follow zoning techniques, but the City of Sisters has done a similar thing and we thought that that was very effective. The City of Sisters in general has done some great work on dark skies, and while we recognize that the situations are different, obviously it's a much smaller community, much more dense. We've taken a lot of suggestions from their code. Basically, the new code boils down to 3 main requirements that are applicable to non-exempt fixtures, and I'll talk about those later. Lights must be downcast, fully shielded, and light trespass is prohibited. The proposed amendments remove, distinctions between different types of bulbs and different types of wattage in favor of a simplified approach, as I mentioned earlier. And again, during those panel discussions, it was acknowledged that the simpler the code, the easier it is for everybody to understand and to enforce. Prohibitions and exemptions have been streamlined. There was just a little bit of circular referencing in those codes, in those sections, certain things that we treated as prohibitions were actually exemptions, so we just cleaned those up. And we clarified some existing exemptions and added some others. We added some for string lights. We didn't have that. We modified those for holiday lighting as well. That's a summary of the changes to the amendments. I'll briefly go over the planning commission process, which has been great. The hearing was held in front of the planning commission on July 10th. The record was held open for about a week, and then they held deliberations on July 24th. All of the testimony received during the planning commission process is all on the record on the project website, so you can refer to that. I summarized that testimony that we received in detail in your memo. I'm not going to go through that now, but in general, I will say that people are supportive of dark skies as a concept, which doesn't come as much of a surprise. Of course, as we always like to say, the devil is in the details. It's what are you actually doing here with this code? But in general, the idea of protecting our night skies from light pollution is widely supported. So in the Planning Commission review and discussion, they recommended approval with a few changes or statements. The first one was non-conformance. Basically, the proposed draft gave 5 years before people would have to come into compliance from the adoption process. The Planning Commission recommended changing this to 3 years. They thought 5 years was just a little long. Of course, the board has the agency to change this back if they'd like at any point.
You know, with that concept, so this is a code package that's gonna be in to be accepted or denied, but I mean accepted. And then 3 years for an existing property owner to fix a obvious violation, is that the idea?
They are supposed to come into compliance, yeah, so use basically have their bulbs downward shielded, fully shielded. And otherwise that is considered a violation, and someone could call that into code enforcement if they chose to. They could also choose not to and live with it, but it technically becomes a violation.
Yeah. So I guess I'm envisioning some could be a very simple fix, but other ones might be requiring changing a design or a fixture too, which could be expensive.
It could be, yeah. There was a similar provision in the old code, in the 1994 code, asking or requiring people to get into compliance by the year 2000. So we are, sorry?
And we missed it.
I mean, the difficulty is that we're not on that date suddenly sending out the light police to look at it, and therein kind of lies the problem. These homes might become out of compliance, and it's a matter of if that's brought to the attention of code enforcement, if this is brought up, maybe it's a between neighbor issue saying, you know, hey Nick, I see your lights are not complying. I'm your neighbor, can you do that, or I'll report you. You know, maybe that's
It makes
Not
for fabulous relations.
well, it could be, you know, it could be educational. So, you know, the idea is that there is a timeline.
I was just
which they
acknowledging, yeah, this is
comply.
for all rural properties, that's all I was acknowledging.
Besides the
Yeah.
non-exempt, besides the exempt ones, but that is correct. That's the idea. Yes. The other recommendation from the Planning Commission was that the board pursue dark sky certification for the county within 5 years. Certification is a program that is managed by the International Dark Sky Places program, which is part of Dark Sky International, which is kind of the international organization that addresses dark skies all over the place. They have an Oregon chapter. They do a lot of good work. So this program certifies communities, parks, and protected areas that meet a certain set of standards with respect to responsible lighting. There's a lot of requirements for this, and as I noted in the memo, there's a comment pertaining to this from Dark Sky Oregon about the requirements that the county would have to meet. This is something that can be addressed in deliberations, but I just wanted to call it out that this was a recommendation of the Planning Commission. If the board decided to go in that direction, there's a series of actions that could be taken both on the regulatory side as well as other measurements that they have to do. It would likely become a separate work plan item. That is not something that needs to be addressed at the point of the work session and the hearing, but there is testimony to suggest that the county should pursue this certification. So that's just kind of putting it on the table. There are a couple other changes that we have made to the code since the Planning Commission process. We tweaked the definition of light trespass to make it a little bit easier to understand, and then modified the exemptions for holiday lighting based on testimony received from Dark Sky in consultation with legal counsel. Originally, the proposed language was an exemption for holiday decorations for no more than 45 days cumulatively in a calendar year. And the revision, as I noted, provides fixed dates, so December 1st to January 15th, as well as 14 cumulative days in the calendar year for other stuff. That was our kind of hybrid solution that of course is up for deliberation as well, but those were the main changes that were made to the amendments since the Planning Commission process. Next steps is there's a public hearing the day after tomorrow. I will say we've received probably about 15 additional pieces of testimony from individuals for the board process. I received a bucket of them right before I came over here, so those will be uploaded onto the website as soon as I get back across the street. And I really appreciate everybody's comments that has been sending them in. It's very helpful to staff, and that's all for now. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
This will be a public hearing.
Yes.
This is in preparation for it. Any other thoughts?
So you brought up this suggestion that we include language to pursue the dark sky certification. And Bill Kowalik, he said he was really excited that aspiration was in there, but that mechanically there was a couple of additional things we would need in order to actually qualify. And
Yes.
so I wanted to ask whether those couple of additional items were considered by the Planning Commission and they said no thanks, or whether these just kind of came up late in the game.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So the concept of certification came up before the Planning Commission, and they really liked that idea, but then the additional comment from Bill Kowalik came in after they deliberated. So after he had heard that they were interested, he said, and by the way, these are the things you actually have to do. So the Planning Commission did not discuss the nuts and bolts of how that would actually occur.
So there wasn't like active opposition or omission of those things. It was just like, oh, didn't think of these things, but
Yeah, it just hadn't come up. It's just it was conceptually, they were interested in the pursuit of the certification without kind of knowing the details of how you actually do it.
right.
And so he's provided that, and so they have not reacted to that because that was after that process.
And then I guess, so if our goal was to simplify and, make it implementable and enforceable, are some of these things really challenging to do at the same time that you're trying to make it simple and implementable and enforceable?
The simple answer is it is a little bit complicated, and this might be best for deliberations when it comes out, but I will say that a lot of the regulatory requirements required for certification does involve kind of measurable stuff, like light color temperature, warmer temperatures in kelvins, and brightness and things like that. So things that need to be, there's like numbers in the code,
It's not just you can go out there and say, yep, there's a shield on that.
Correct, right. So that's kind of what the board is gonna have to wrestle with. It would make the code a little bit more complicated and more difficult to enforce, but it would also result in, an outcome that would make the county more likely to be able to get that certification. Without those things, you cannot get certified. So that's a choice, and then that becomes a potential resource issue and capacity issue. And I'll also say that it is possible that the board, and again, I might be getting a little ahead of myself, that the board could choose to adopt or a certain version of amendments now and choose to look for the goal to pursue certification and come back and do regulatory, like another round of regulatory changes. So it doesn't all necessarily need to be captured now. Obviously that is a time issue, but it doesn't need to, you don't need to nail everything right down right now. In a year, if you decide to pursue that, you could revisit the amendments in theory.
The light trespass, that component, I mean, doesn't that involve a certain degree of measurement as well?
Technically, no. If that's why they changed it. So now the revised definition is light trespass. Light trespass exists when a person is able to see direct illumination from an offsite fixture. In other words, if you can kind of see the bulb from far away, you know that that's going to have light trespass. Because otherwise, if it was fully shielded,
Right.
you wouldn't see it. So you don't need to measure. There's not.
Okay.
That's an easy way of kind of enforcing it. Of course,
Before it was about kind of like if there's a certain amount of light
of
on your property.
lumens on there, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So
That's
that-
probably the better way to do it, but this is the simpler way to do it. Yeah.
So in that instance, we went away from like, you know, a measurement based standard to
Correct.
just something that's easier to.
Yeah, and that was a choice that kind of staff made, you know, per the original direction of the board was to go ahead and kind of simplify this. And so removing measurements and kind of numbers-based observations is the choice that we made, and that comes with some sacrifices, and that's that balance that we're trying to nail. It's more complicated than it seems at first, right? Yeah.
Just a question, just because I think about my own HOA or the holiday light exception.
Yeah.
Was there any thought about saying something like the Saturday after Thanksgiving to MLK Day rather than specific dates? Just because you can have an early Thanksgiving or you could have a.
Yes, I know,
Right.
that's exactly
Do you
what
have
I was saying.
Thanksgiving lights?
No, the Saturday after.
Yes, no, I know.
Yeah, some people do it.
It's
I
true.
mean, so actually you need to go.
It's funny,
to what he's saying.
Yeah,
when I lived in
Thanksgiving.
England, they started in October because they don't have Thanksgiving.
Yes, of course they do.
There, I mean, that is up for consideration. The suggestion from Dark Sky was those dates, but we could certainly.
I think it
modify
really
that.
makes
It's a good
way
question.
more sense because a lot of people, like, you do Thanksgiving and then the next day I take out the Christmas decorations.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
definitely up for deliberations. The board
Yeah.
could choose to do. No, it's a good idea.
I was just thinking about code enforcement. You don't come in on a Monday morning when it's November 29th and everyone's got their lights up. But
Right.
Anyway.
Right, yeah. No, there's a lot of nuances that.
But people could also, they could just set everything up and not plug it in
That's so
until
fun.
until December first,
Well, after you've
right?
done all that work, you're gonna wanna turn it on because you gotta see how it looks.
This is making me think of Clever as well.
I was just saying that.
Christmas vacation. Yeah.
Okay, Veterans Day.
Well, that's, yeah, it's what's your favorite holiday? But yeah, there are lots of variables and we can certainly play around with those as we deliberate, but there's a
Well,
lot
some
to
people
think
go
about.
Halloween then.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
What about
Halloween's-
Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
Well, no, there was, you know, there was that winter holiday window, and
Yeah.
then there was a certain amount of days
For other
in addition to
holidays.
that for other holidays.
Yes, yeah, and we chose 14
Halloween,
days.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
So, well, along those lines, I mean, I remember, you know, at that time of year, end of December, first of the year, you're coming home from the office at 4 o'clock, it's kind of nice to see those lights, because it's dark out there.
that's how I know where my house
So
is.
exactly, I mean, there's a
Yes.
reason that those lights are out there at that time.
Yeah,
So big picture though, 1994 was the first set of these light containers. Was there anything before that?
that's my knowledge.
Yeah, so that was kind of like the
I
first
think that was
attempt.
the first
This is
one.
the first update of what was put in originally.
And it's my understanding that those original regulations were very well received, right? I mean, Nick, you would know, and Peter, you would know, I think the dark skies.
It was before I started,
I know,
as I
but-
learned, when I did start in 2009, I mean, it was very forward thinking.
Yeah,
In 1994, Deschutes County was really in front of dark skies at the time and has continued to be.
So celebrating that history here is what we're doing.
yeah,
And it's interesting, you think about, yeah, a 100-watt light bulb is just different today. You know, you get to that, like,
and
different fixture types.
exactly.
String lights can be incandescent or LED and a remote control. We've seen the eaves with the LED lights, they can be fully automated to make it a light show. It's interesting what you can do.
There's a lot of technology out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it does, I mean, people have been really, just the comments have been very strongly, people feel strongly about
Oh, yeah.
this. You know, this is it's important to them to protect their night skies.
Well, and having that cross section of the planning commission kind of digest this also, because obviously there's passionate people that are on this. And then the neighborly relationship sometimes, I didn't know that light bothered you, you know, whatever.
Right,
But then people that can use it for kind of annoying purposes too.
yeah, there are some nefarious, bad actors sometimes.
And
Great.
sometimes annoyance is in the eye of the
Yes.
beholder.
Exactly.
But then again, I think about, there was an elderly couple in a snowstorm in Sisters that could not find their house and they actually died, I believe, in their car. This was like in 2013, that winter. And so those lights actually in the winter do help you when you, let's say you're driving in a snowstorm. I mean, I went to in a snowstorm one morning, it was so bad, it was, I couldn't see, and it was a drive I do, you know, like every day. And I couldn't hardly see anything, so lights in that case are really, because we don't have street lights out in the country.
Right.
So they can make that difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the site was.
I mean, doesn't anyone remember that elderly couple, they were like in their 80s
Yeah.
and they died, it was so sad, they couldn't find their driveway or whatever.
So this will be a public hearing on the matter on Wednesday.
Yes. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice to see you, Tanya.
Nice to see you as well.
Item number 3 is our treasurer.
Thank you.
I see we've got investment policy.
Yeah, I'll talk about that at the end. You will. Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Bill Coon, Sheets County Treasurer. Thanks for allowing me to present the July Treasurer's Report. And what I typically do is provide a high-level overview of economic conditions that have occurred over the last month. Go back to July, as expected, the Federal Reserve held rates steady in July for the 5th consecutive meeting. However, for the first time in over 30 years, we had 2 voting Fed governors who dissented instead of voting for a 25 basis point reduction. So that's the first time that that's happened in quite some time. Basically, it meant that it was not a unanimous decision to hold rates steady. I'll give you a little bit of an example as to some of the
Are you
challenges.
referring to what happened like yesterday or the last couple days? Or
What's that?
What time frame are you referring to the 2 dissenting? Was it just like yesterday?
It was
It was
the
at
Fed
Jackson
meeting
Hole.
in July.
Yeah, so
And they
July.
had, the last time that we actually had a dissenting vote during a Fed meeting was 30 years ago, where it was not a unanimous decision.
Because they just had the Jackson meetings or whatever yesterday and the day before.
Yeah,
It was
You're not
on
referring
Thursday
to
and
that.
Friday.
not
Yeah.
referring to that at all. I'm actually talking about the Fed
Yes.
meeting, the official Fed
Yeah,
meeting
got
that
it.
occurred in
Okay.
July.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
You.
And I think last week was a good indication of some of the challenges faced by the Fed in navigating the dual responsibilities of ensuring a robust labor market while also managing down core inflation. Headline CPI inflation increased by 0.2% in July, but year-over-year inflation remained at 2.7%. Economists actually expected inflation to increase slightly to 2.8%. Several Fed governors commented that tariffs were not seen as causing a potential shock to inflation, but also seeing signs of fragility in the labor market. Indications are that the Fed feels well positioned to adjust monetary policy if needed, basically meaning a series of rate cuts. With an extremely weak July payroll report, only 73,000 new jobs were created in July. And that was also in addition to significant revisions of the last 2 months' labor reports as well. The Fed is closely watching this market. With this news, the overall unemployment rate rose to 4.2%. The weak payroll report also prompted President Trump to replace the current head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which happened within a few days after the release of that report. Commenting on both the CPI inflation and weak labor market, Treasury Secretary Bessent announced his expectation for up to a 50 basis point rate cut when the Fed meets on September 16th and 17th, although he is not a voting member of the Fed. So that's just expectations coming from the current administration. On Thursday, producer price inflation, the PPI, was surprisingly hot for the month of July on broad service driven pressures, pushing the year-over-year rate up to 3%. And that was quite a bit higher than expectations. And again, this increase appears to be driven in part by tariff pass-throughs that are starting to happen on the PPI side of things. Finally, on Friday, Fed Chair Powell commented from Jackson Hole that the downside risk to employment may warrant a rate cut. And immediately after that announcement, the stock market went up 800 points on Friday. Initially, these comments caused Treasury yields to drop significantly, but there's been some bounce back this morning. The markets are currently estimated right now, as of a few hours ago, an 82% of a September rate cut, and still 2 rate cuts by year end. So September and potentially another one before the end of the year. As we've seen before, more recent economic information can obviously drive the market expectations for a rate cut. But right now, it appears to be a very strong chance that we'll actually see a rate cut in September. With significant tariff announcements.
Did we have last year, Bill? Was it like 5?
We had 5 last year.
Yeah, 5 last
Yeah.
year, and we haven't had any this year.
We haven't had any rate
Not
cuts so
0.
far in 2025. Yeah,
Very fascinating.
yeah, it's quite a swing there. One thing that we have seen over the last few months, or actually probably the last 30 to 45 days, we've had significant tariff announcements that have whipsawed financial markets. But it now appears that financial markets are taking a more measured approach to new announcements instead of reacting almost instantaneously, basically allowing time for negotiations to finalize before assessing overall economic impact. So I think we're being a little bit more measured in terms of not responding quite so immediately to new news on the tariff front. Another thing that came up, there was an announcement a couple of weeks ago that we've expected that various tariff initiatives would eventually impact economic growth, but the release of Q2 GDP dispelled this assumption, with growth coming in at a robust 3% for the period. So the market, or the economy, is still growing recently. Second quarter GDP was stronger than anticipated.
The tariffs haven't been real yet.
No, they haven't, and that's again part of the trying to figure out just when that impact might eventually be felt by the market. And as of second quarter GDP, it was still pretty strong growth. Bellwether 10-year UST yield has increased fairly significantly, but actually that. Yeah, I was going to actually move on to Consumer Confidence Index. Over the past few months, I've been tracking the Consumer Confidence Index, which actually rose to 103.3 in August, which was up from July's revised 101.9. And this is driven by an improved assessment of the present economic situation and a slightly better short-term assessment as well. So consumers are feeling a little bit more confident right now in their ability to weather the current economy and feeling more positive about their own personal situations than they have over the past several months. Surprisingly, housing starts rose 5.2% in July, surpassing the 3.5% gain expected and pulling the annual rate up to 1.4 million, which was a 2-month high. Contributing to this increase was a surge in apartment construction nationwide. However, forward-looking permit activity fell 2.8%. So again, a lot of conflicting economic data out there, and it's making the Fed's assessment of the economic the strength of our current economy very difficult. At a regional level, I typically provide data on several markets within Deschutes County. The July Bend single-family residential market showed a median sales price that increased to $750,000 for the month of July. And this was up from $693,000 in June. With 158 sales for the month of July, 44 of these sales were above $1 million, and 59 of these were cash sales. So again, we're still seeing a lot of strong cash sales activity, which is typically independent of what the mortgage market is doing. And again, we actually saw a spike in sales over $1 million in the month of July.
So you said 44 were over $1 million. That would.
Yeah, 44 were over $1 million and
59
59
were
of the
cash.
total were cash sales.
Of the 158.
Yeah, out of the total 158, yeah. We still see a significant 4.5 month inventory of supply of homes for sale, but only a 21-day listing period for sold properties. So the ones that are selling quickly, but we've built inventory levels over the last few months, and it's market's a little bit out of balance right now in terms of the number of properties for sale versus what's actually selling. Bend single family residential home permits dropped to 31 for the month, which was down from 48 in June. So we've seen a slight decline in permits that are being issued versus what we've seen over the last several months. Redmond statistics saw a stable market median price of 506,000 for July, which compared to 530,000 in June. Redmond area permits were 19 in July, which was actually up from 9 for the prior month. So we've had a slowdown in permit activity in the Redmond market that we've seen over the past several months. Sales overall have been pretty stable in the Redmond market, and again, that correlates to increasing economic growth in the area. A lot of the new jobs that are being created in Deschutes County area are actually in the Redmond market, and that's driven some pretty strong and stable pricing for that market.
So you actually said we had 19 permits in July, prior 9?
Yeah, there were 9 for the month of June and 19 for the month of July.
Okay, so that got better.
Yeah. Looking at some other markets within Deschutes County, Sisters Market had a median sales price of $815,000 on 5 sales. Sun River had a median sales price of a little over $1 million, $1,050,000 on 9 sales, and La Pine was $386,000.
And how many sales do you know?
You know, I didn't write that down. If I recall, it was 19, but don't hold me to that number.
I'll write it down.
Okay, put that one down in pencil. Any other questions on economic activity?
So what's going on in La Pine then? Is the market, is it getting better? Do you know, Commissioner Vaughn?
There's definitely for sale signs around, but just a slow roll of sales, you know, that's what we're seeing. And not a lot of new starts or constructions. I always figured that there's a lot of 1 acre lots with like a single wide manufactured home still from the 70s and the 80s that are just prime for redevelopment, but the market's just not there for it. It's just not cost effective to do that still.
It
People
really
like
is
top
defined
dollar.
as affordable housing in
Yeah.
Deschutes County, but people weigh that against the transportation costs of commuting into Bend. If they have a job in Bend or Redmond and they're commuting out of La Pine every day, it's challenging. But there is a lot of activity on that road.
And I'm just seeing some of those properties are not well maintained now, and I'm not judging anything, I'm just saying
Yeah.
they're going down, but they're huge opportunities for redevelopment. So someday that's gonna come around and it'll be interesting.
Couldn't agree more.
We could get Highway 97 heated from Bend to La Pine, that would help, wouldn't it? No, I mean, like the sidewalks at East Oregon University, they actually have heated sidewalks.
It would
there.
help. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's in ODOT's
Oh,
repair
I'm sure it
maintenance
is. Well,
budget.
I'm sure it is, don't you think?
So I'll go into the July treasurer's report. The portfolio balance was $306 million at month end, which was a decrease of $16.9 million from June. This decline was primarily due to several large AP runs and other funding needs that occurred during the month. Net investment earnings were $1,030,000 for the month, which was $16,000 lower than last month's earnings, but $205,000 higher than a year ago. What we are starting to see now is the impact of the overall reduction in our portfolio balance. So we've got a smaller balance that's yielding investment earnings. So that's really the biggest difference that we've seen over the last several months. All portfolio category balances are well within policy guidelines. The LGIP rate remained at 4.6% for the month, which has been flat since, I believe, March. and the First Interstate Bank rate has remained at 4.25%. Overall portfolio yields have shown continued improvement and were 4.01% for the month, which was essentially flat with 4.04% yield for the prior month. This overall yield has been positively impacted by the large number of redemptions and lower yielding aged investments in the portfolio. As I reported last month, we had roughly 16 million in investments yielding a sub 1% rate that are maturing in August. We've already seen, through the end of the month, we'll get the full 16 million, but I've already reinvested 8 million of that to extend our bond maturity ladder. And I was primarily investing in the April through August of 2028 range. So basically pushing our maturities out again to a full 3 years. And most of those yields were in the 3.7 to 3.9% range. This should have a positive overall impact on portfolio yield, but more importantly, we were able to lock in these rates for up to 3 years. Also in July, looking back, I reinvested 6 million in short-term funds, which also extended the maturity curve. The 5-year maturity distribution schedule reflects these recent investments, again, kind of targeting that April through August of 2028. With recent investment activity, the portfolio now has a weighted term to maturity of 1.04 years, with a maximum maturity standing at slightly over 3 years right now. And we do continue to maintain a fairly strong short-term liquidity position. But again, the bulk of these short-term funds are yielding the LGIP rate of 4.6%. Any questions on the Treasurer's report?
Harry. What's that? We may be stabilizing what the returns can get to, as in, if the near horizon is the Fed taking this thing down a little bit.
That will have an
maybe
impact.
Kind of the
a flattening effect.
Yeah.
It's taken a little while to get to the point that we're at right now, but new investing activity, like I indicated, I invested $8 million a week ago, and we were in the 3.7 to 3.9 range for 3-year maturities. So again, our optimal point is we're trying to reinvest to the point where we have a certain level of redemptions monthly, and targeting right now between $6 and $8 million a month of redemptions to fund ongoing capital needs, and seems to be in a good place. But again, we're kind of peaking right now in the on the interest rate curve, and I would anticipate that rates looking forward will be slightly lower than where they are right now. So. Without further ado, I think I'll jump into the other agenda item, and that would be the proposed minor modifications to our F10 investment policy. I believe in the packet there was a red line and also the current investment policy. During our last investment advisory committee meeting, we conducted a review of our current policy, which we're required to do, and the committee recommended 2 very minor modifications that were suggested and also voted on by the committee. These are to basically eliminate the detail and the scope of our portfolio, which is on page 1 of the investment policy, and also to correct what is contradictory language with regards to the maximum weighted average maturity in our portfolio. It was felt that the detail and the size range of our portfolio on page 1 of the investment policy was not relevant, and also changes yearly. And it really doesn't do anything to define with any tight parameters the size of our portfolio. The maximum weighted average maturity actually by policy should be no more than 2 years, but the table at the top of page 4 is for minimum parameters, not maximum parameters. So it really didn't need to be in that location in the investment policy. The correct parameter has always been correctly detailed on page 8 of the policy. So again, very minor modifications to the investment advisory, or excuse me, the investment policy. As required, I did send our proposed modifications over to the Oregon Short-Term Fund Board, and a staff member conducted a desktop review of these changes, deeming them to be immaterial. However, they've recently changed their policy, and so this request will be included in their consent agenda at the next OSTF board meeting in November. But they did, again, staff member deemed these policy changes to be immaterial, but I did want to let you know that that will be on their consent agenda in November as well. I was informed last Thursday that these proposed minor modifications will be reviewed by our policy advisory committee before final approval. So that's kind of where we are right now.
So yeah, you're acting as the elected treasurer in this situation. You've got the committee that's proposing this. We're gonna basically receive it at a meeting for.
It'll be a consent
yeah.
agenda item at a future date, and not quite sure. Nick can maybe share some detail on how quickly that might be turned around, but
Well, then,
again, they're not material changes, so it doesn't change how the policy guides our investment activity.
I was just saying that, so I support the policy advisory committee because it's basically an opportunity to get the floor and explain what's going on in your world. So I'm just, sharing that concept. I think this is good that the other
Yeah.
department heads or whoever's engaged in the advisory committee gets a little bit of headspace on this. That's what I was thinking.
Any other comments on any of that? Thank you for your time.
Now, item number 4, finance report for 1 month.
One month activity.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer. Yes, today we're here to present the finance report for July 2025. Typically, we talk about trends or see where we're at within the fiscal year. However, since this, as you pointed out, this is the first month of the fiscal year and it's the only month so far. So I won't be actually going through the report in detail today. I will highlight a few items for you, but I did also bring some other financial topics that I just wanted to raise for your awareness and inform you about. But first I'll go over a few announcements. Right now in finance, we're working on 3 fiscal years because we are beginning the process for fiscal year 25, the ending year audit. And so our auditors, Moss Adams, who is now Baker Tilly, they merged with them. So if you hear reference to Baker Tilly, those are our new auditors. We have the same auditing team from Moss Adams, but now they'll be Baker Tilly. So if you get a contact and it's a Baker Tilly email address or something, it's our new auditing firm's name, but we have the same team. Anyway, so they're going to be on site next week for the full week doing their interim build work there before they actually get into the audit. They'll be looking at a lot of internal controls, meeting with a lot of the staff and just getting us all set prime for our financial statements. So we're working in fiscal year 25 on the actual side. As you know, we just now started fiscal year 26. Now we're in August, starting the 2nd month. So we're working a lot in today's fiscal year 26. But I also wanted to give you an update for fiscal year 27. So we're already going to be starting, we're going to start the budget process in September. And that's when the meetings will start with finance and admin staff. We'll start looking at some very, very preliminary numbers and then come out with what we think a plan of attack might be or a process for this upcoming year. Then we're going to start with a similar process to last year. We'll start meeting with departments, general fund departments, and general fund users, transfers of the general fund, and start doing a similar process, like I said, for last year. And then, of course, we'll involve the board, once we see where the numbers are and what we're thinking, then we'll come up with some options on our process for next year. As you know, this current year that we're in now, general fund was limited to 3.3% growth. Internal service funds were limited to 8% growth. They actually came in at 6% growth, so they beat the target. And so initially when CAM, Budget Financial Planning Manager, had done the original forecast, we estimated 3.3% growth in the general fund for this year, 4% for next year, 5% the year after. But we'll take a look at all the assumptions. We'll re-update all that information and see what will actually occur for fiscal year 27. So we'll be coming back to you with lots of information about the process after we start meeting internally and with departments as well. So like I said, working in 3 fiscal years right now for all of us.
Well, we know that, I mean, that budget path that's so narrow is probably still gonna just be that way. And I want to thank Jim Pfister from our budget committee pointing out that doing this 1 year is easier, but 2 and 3, it gets really tricky because there's no more ways to just even narrow overhead. So, thank you very much for
That's
taking a
absolutely
good
right.
look at that. Yeah.
Yep, and that is another reason why we want to start just as early this upcoming year. And because we know that, you know, looking under every stone, you know, it's always easier at first and it gets tougher as you go along, so. And then on different subjects, so I will be coming back to the board in, well, September now, regarding PERS Employer Incentive Fund. So there was another option for that match if you want to, and we do have $5 million in our PERS reserve. And so we did apply for a match, non-committed, but you just have to get in there. And we did receive from the state that we are in the pool for that match. And so I'll be coming to the board, providing some information and some details, and then asking for board's permission if we want to pursue that. So we'll be coming back to that in September for the board.
Are there a cohort of jurisdictions in this spot, this dynamic? Because not everybody has this opportunity, and we could have put it all in the first time, and we didn't.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, do you have like a half a dozen other counties, or are there other cities that are?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I
Yeah.
believe there was $39 million available. And it was around 30 or so counties, or cities, counties, special districts that got in. There were 6 on the waiting list that didn't make it in.
Yeah.
So we were one of the ones that did, but there were 6 jurisdictions.
I'm
that-
referring to just jurisdictions that even have resources to be able to do
Okay,
this.
yeah. Well, I
Other
think,
than, I don't know, you know, or do other jurisdictions do it from other resources? Because this is a reserve that was put in place way back.
on this employer incentive fund, it has to be cash on hand. It could not be, some other times there were side accounts, you can go out for a bond to fund it with that. It had to be from current resources, you couldn't borrow from it. So there were limited, but there were a number of jurisdictions that did apply and were received pending approval from their boards or counselors, whatever.
And then this is, from the state's point of view, it's really just making the pool of investable resources bigger so they can hopefully hold on to this commitment made.
Is to draw down the liability, decrease the liability, so that at a statewide level, the liability isn't as high, it's still high, but it's not as high, that's why it was
Yeah.
originally incorporated.
And then there's $39 million from the state. Is that out of the state general fund, you think that they were looked at, pulled together?
I believe that was the resources, I'll get to look into that. It might have been some lottery
But if
funds.
it-
might
yeah,
have
if it was-
initially funded.
Yeah, it's still resources that are going to that.
It's
Yeah.
from the state match,
Yeah, yeah.
25%, so if we put in our 5 million, we'd get a match of 1.25 million, and then we'd also earn investment earnings on that. So, but I'll be coming in September for that conversation, just want to give you a heads up on some of the bigger items that we're working on in finance as well.
But what about the pathetic performance of the state PERS fund and the fact that they were invested, what was it, in private equity?
Yep.
On a way higher ratio than what their $1 million advice was given to them? Yes, I mean, it seems like, really?
Here.
Yeah, no, it's really scary because they're not following their own advice.
Yep.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
their goals, their parameters, and
Yes.
so forth, yeah.
Yeah, what a mess.
All right, so now we'll turn to, in your packet, page 80, the July financial report 2025 at a high level. Again, this is just 8.3% of the fiscal year of 1 month. As we go through these pages, and I'm gonna, again, skip a lot today, because most of the projections are all still just what the budget was. We went through all the budgets on all the departments with the funds, and so there's not a lot of detail there. So on page 81, it's the position control summary. Just 1 month, we're at 9.9% of unfilled, which again is around our 10.43 average. That's been the last 3 years, or a little over 10%. So we're about at, even for the first month, where we would expect to be. Obviously, page 82 in the overtime personnel budget, no one's 1 month in, no one's over their budget 1 month in, which is a good thing.
No, but the sheriff's office was 158,000 for the month.
that they spent.
Yeah, they actually spent in
Yes.
overtime, and I know the
Yep.
man standing out my gate worked 15 hours on Saturday. So, yeah, I mean, people were actually, you know, a lot of hours from the sheriff's office was put in, is still being put in.
Absolutely. When there's emergency events,
Right,
that happens too. Yeah, and they have the largest overtime budget out of
right,
all
they
the
do,
county
but I'm
departments.
just, yes.
Yep, a lot of great work. On page 87, the general fund report, this is the same comment I'm gonna make that's applicable to every single fund, but just wanna be a reminder. On the fiscal year 25 column, the first bar column off to the left, there's the budget's the final budget numbers for last year, but the actuals numbers, some of these numbers will actually still change a little bit as we continue to post things back. So right now, the general fund says the final actuals total fund balance ends at 23.081 million. And that's a good estimate where it is right now. However, it will change once we make all the final adjustments and post everything back. The next set of columns under fiscal year 26, the budget and actuals, you'll see near the bottom, beginning fund balance of 22.9 million. That number will actually we'll update it to what the actuals were for fiscal year 25, the ending number. So the ending number becomes the beginning number. On some of these funds, you'll notice it's the same because there weren't adjustments at the time of writing the report. This fund, it's different where if this was the final number, we would incorporate, it's not much, but a difference between 22.9 million and 23.01 million. That difference would be added to beginning to fund balance, which means they have additional resources. And we come back and do a true up in December of every year for all the funds. Some will be under, some will be over, and we'll true up the ending from one year to the beginning of the next year.
So are you saying, Robert, on page like 86, where you have fiscal year 24 still on the top headline and then fiscal year
Oh.
25?
Yeah.
Is that what it's supposed to be?
No, that should be 25 and 26.
I know, I'm looking at that going, oh,
You found it.
There you go.
okay, I'm doing my job.
This is the first month of the year.
I was just like, oh, is this something special that I didn't know about or something? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we were waiting for that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
So, yeah, we'll update that for next time. But we'll be adjusting those ending numbers and beginning numbers coming in. So you'll see that as we go through the report. So I'm gonna flip to page 89, which is the TLT fund, Transient Lodging Tax Fund, 160, 170. Just an item I want to point out in that it's nothing about the projections or the budget where we're at, but just to point out under resources at the top, miscellaneous. On the far right, you'll see we put in a budget projection of $400,000. What this is, and there's a footnote there, estimated certificate of authority fee revenue. This is an estimate that we put in, and I think it could be a high estimate at this point, but we'll adjust as we go through the fiscal year. As you may recall, the board changed the ordinance, updated the ordinance, and effective September 1st, this certificate of authority fee is in effect with $300 for the initial certificate of authority issuance and $150 for renewal. However, it doesn't start until September, as I mentioned. We've been doing a lot of outreach and notifying everyone in our system about, hey, here's the new code that's going to be implemented starting in September, and there's a new fee, make sure you're aware. Well, if anyone hasn't already updated their annual certificate of authority, they're updating it now. So we've had a large increase in July and August in the number of certificate of authorities being issued while it's free, there's no charge. And so, but starting September it will. So I say that because that means that those groups of people that register still won't register again for their annual recertify until the following July, which would be in fiscal year 27 now. So that's why we'll see where this estimate lands on the revenue. But for now, we're just putting a placeholder on what we might expect. And how the fund works, if you look at in their transfers, transfer out general county reserve. Right now, the default is anything left over in this fund is transferred out to the general county reserve, the capital reserve. As you may recall from the budget time, there is no longer a general fund support for capital projects. It only comes from a transfer of TRT. But for now, it's just a placeholder as we get through the year and start seeing the revenue come in, we'll have more conversations regarding that. So if you want to go to page 93, which is Health Services Fund 274. Want to point out a couple items on their funds. This page 93, Fund 274, this is all their programs combined, just at a high level. First, on their OHP reserves, the reserves is, actuals is 39.9 million. And for this current fiscal year 26, they expect it to be about 37 million. So go down a little bit from today's projection. But if you look down the projection column under transfers, the very first line, transfers in OHP mental health, you'll see transfers in, and this is all funds combined, of $10.3 million. And that's just a reminder that they use their reserves to help support these funds operationally or via capital within their programs. So if you turn the page to page 95, Fund 274 for behavioral health, you'll notice if you scroll down to the transfer section, again, that very top line on page 95 for Fund 274 behavioral health, transfers in OHP mental health. So this is where you see the behavioral health fund is actually receiving that $10 million in from their reserve. Obviously, and they have funds that transfer out too, but that's the funds being used. So I just wanted to point out where you see the transfers and how it relates within the fund. This fund 274 and their next fund, actually, the public health, the behavioral health and public health, both have a footnote on the first revenue. You'll notice that they're already estimating a decline in their revenues from state grants as Health Services is working with Oregon Health Authority to determine the amounts of fiscal year 25 state grant carryover and fiscal year 26 base awards. So they are making some adjustments already, but they're preliminary numbers and they'll look into that as we go. So these are one of the only funds that actually made some changes in their projections. Not the only one, but a few. Parole and probation, Fund 355, page 99.
You did say was that the reserve number, or the reserve is 39.9 million, and you're saying it's gonna be another 37 million?
Yeah, currently as of today, the actual is 39.9
Okay,
and their projection is 37.
okay, thank you. So then which one did you want me to?
Fund 355, page 99, adult parole and probation. This is another fund that if you look at their very first line for resources, you'll see a variance already between the budget of 5.4 million and their projection of 4.5. So a difference of 837. So they adjusted the number for their final grant and aid allocation based on the legislative changes. So this is a fund that's already been updated as far as their revenue projections. Again, a lot of these other funds remain the same. So I'm going to go to the Health Benefits Fund, page 110, in your packet, Fund 675. Again, we're still posting back charges for this. If you look in the fiscal year 25 actuals column, currently, as of this July report, it stood at 11.3 million. I looked at the report today, it's actually at 11.1 million. So we paid some more bills, so it's come down to 11.1. We had budgeted 7.5, but we are projecting, we think around, it says 10.3, it could be about 10.8. We're hoping it'll be a little higher than we thought. So good thing is we're still on target to be over our $8 million level at this point, reserve level, but it's still at the minimal balance that it is, but we've made progress in that sense.
Serious progress, I would say.
Absolutely.
The department's picked up a whole bunch of charges
They did
to get this thing back into a healthier position.
That's right. It was a combination of that and a reduction in some high claims that we had.
Yes.
But and they were both needed. So that's a high level overview for today. Not a lot of change in the reports from the budget that the board adopted as well. Any questions?
Oh, so glad I found that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's hope it ends up at the 10.8 then.
Yes.
That would be great.
So this time, other items. I'm trying to start off our commissioner announcements discussion, but is there anything else? Other items?
to be testifying. Transportation Committee at 3.
That's fine, okay. Commissioner Dare too, sounds like.
Yes.
I'll just remind the board and the community, we have county college that kicks off tomorrow at 4 o'clock, 4 to 6. The district mapping advisory committee begins their work on Wednesday.
Board of County College. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, another item, I suggest
Oh,
you
yes, thank you.
have a ratification vote
Okay.
on the delegation of authority document that you signed this weekend.
Okay, yeah, so I mentioned the document, so yeah, delegation of authority, Oregon State Fire Marshal, Red Team, Joint Incident Coordination. I was able to sign on behalf of Deschutes County proper to begin this process of joint. And then there'll be a signature terminating it also, correct? At the end of the incident. Just looking at the phone numbers, maybe is this, so I partially wiped out yours, Commissioner Dare, is that, I'm saying these are public documents, could we take those numbers out possibly? Just I usually don't put that one out, just on public documents per se.
Sure. They could be redacted, I don't know where this is right now, but.
I just brought it in and we shared it,
So-
and I shared it with the incident people, but just kind of document.
Yeah.
That's all.
You need a motion to go ahead and maybe make those redactions to block out the identified phone numbers, but otherwise to ratify your signature on 2025-886.
So moved.
Sounds right. Redactions have to be complicated.
I don't believe anything's gone to the Commissioner's Journal yet, so it'd be, at this point, they could capture that.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
So I just wanna know, if this happened at 3 in the afternoon, does that mean that nothing really came over? Could the governor, did she already go ahead with what they were doing because it started in Jefferson County?
I would assume so. I don't know if this is a hard, fast point in time. I think things are happening prior to this.
Well, this was a Central Oregon Type 3 incident team transition to Joint Command. So there was already an incident team on it called the Type 3 team. Fire Commissioner.
This is not connected to the conflagration declaration.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I mean, that's the conflagration declaration, that's what authorizes the governor to basically suck firefighters from all over the state and send them here.
But if that was, but on the news, it said that was not done until Friday. So is that the truth?
Well, this Friday at 3 in the afternoon was the meeting where Type 3 Incident Command gave authority to this Joint Command under the State Fire Marshal Red Team. It's just a point in time for management of the incident. The incident was already rocking and rolling. Obviously, there was resources on the ground, but as I say, I know here.
I was driving my kid, over towards Salem on Friday, early afternoon, and there were all kinds of fire trucks coming from structural agencies over the hill, early Friday afternoon.
And that was probably from the Conflagration Act, Susan Governor said that. And now we got
But
notification.
I just wanna know what time did she really sign it, because it was the only fire in the state. And, I saw the people parked by the road and the fire had just started. It really wasn't time to be chatting by the road, but actually get down the road 12 miles to where the fire was, so. I just wondered when she actually got that, when she did her thing.
Not every fire gets a conflagration declaration.
Okay,
It has to reach a certain size and scale.
Oh, yeah, well,
And-
that's what I
and so-
mean, they let it reach a really good size and they let it come, in our county, so.
Because the thought is that up to a certain size and scale, local resources can cover it.
Uh-huh,
So it's been moved and seconded. I don't think we've come to the vote yet.
here we have it,
So any other discussion? Seeing that, Commissioner Dare,
yes?
Commissioner Chan. Yes. And Chair will vote yes. But this time, a executive session.
Okay, the Board of Commissioners will now convene an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660. Which allows the board to meet in executive session. In this instance, it's for litigation matters and employment of a public employee. Designated staff and the media are allowed to remain during the executive session. However, the media may not report on the specifics, but only the general purpose of the executive session. Recording devices are not permitted. No final decision will be made in executive session. At the conclusion of the executive session, we will open the doors and invite the audience back into the meeting.